And Pope Francis challenges believers to never renounce our faith in Christ, even if it means giving up our very lives. His comments come as the Holy Father reflects on the life and death of Blessed Oscar Romero. Wyatt Goolsby joins us now with that story.
Brian, Pope Francis calls Archbishop Oscar Romero a martyr for the faith. He says since his death, though, Romero's been martyred over and over again by people who slander his name. The Holy Father is setting the record straight. Archbishop Oscar Romero speaking out against the violence in his native El Salvador. This is how millions remember the man Pope Francis calls a good pastor, full of love for God. The Holy Father recently praised Blessed Romero while meeting with pilgrims from El Salvador. The Pope saying Romero lived the Beatitudes. Blessed Romero was assassinated in 1980 while celebrating Mass in a hospital chapel, one day after calling on the government to end their violation of human rights against the population.
It is now 34 years later, pretty clear that he was assassinated by a right-wing death squad, and that his sermon was in some ways the final straw.
Jeff Thale has studied human rights issues in El Salvador for decades. Thale says tensions couldn't have been higher when Romero was killed. The country's civil war, which started in 1979, pitted the military-led government against left-wing guerrilla groups. Thousands who spoke out against the government on immigration and land reform issues simply disappeared. Thale says for years, Archbishop Romero was focused on being a pastor, not wanting to get involved in politics. But after seeing many innocent people die in El Salvador, he felt compelled to speak out.
Archbishop Romero was not there calling for revolution or whatever. Archbishop Romero was calling for respect for human rights and for attention to the concerns of the poor.
Leonor del Carmen Chacon and her husband were married by Romero in 1963. She still has lots of keepsakes.
I feel happy. I feel proud that we were friends with a saint, because for us, he was a saint from the beginning. For us, he was a humble saint.
For Leonor and many Central Americans, Romero will always be remembered as a voice for the voiceless. In February, Pope Francis formally recognized Romero as a martyr, which cleared the way for him to be beatified in May. Romero still needs a miracle in order to be declared a saint. Brian?
Thank you, Wyatt.